Welcome in to your quarterly bonus casual gaming conversation. I'm Connor. That's Nick. We are talking about Arcane today from the world of League of Legends. Nick and I's favorite game of all time. Never played a match.
Played one. Shout out to my friend. I got the PC my sophomore year of college, and they were just like, "You got to download League," and I'm just like, "Dude, I am not that nerdy." And he's like, "Nick, you're pretty fucking nerdy. Like, you talk about video games," and I was like, "Okay, fine, I'll give it a shot." Downloaded it, played half of a match, and I was just like, "Oh no!"
It just seems like a lot to learn. I
It
know
is.
that the community is toxic, is what a lot of people say, but a lot of people say that about Valorant as well.
Yeah.
And it's hit or miss for sure. I think there's bad moments you can have in any multiplayer game. So I'm like that's never been a deterrent for me. It's the idea of learning how to play this game, and I don't really want to do that right now.
Yeah.
So I'm afraid of League of Legends because of that. But Arcane, damn good show, damn good world.
Yeah.
Love season one. We are both huge fans of season one, but we're gonna talk about season two today and go act by act, talk about some of the specific moments, talk about our feelings on the show. But Nick, how are we doing today?
Doing well. Like 3 out of 10. Connor gets a text message at midnight last night being like, "Hey man, just got sick and it doesn't seem like it's gonna stop anytime soon." And so 8:30 rolls around and our shoot time was 9. He gives me the call. He's like, "We gotta send a big dog. Like if it's just stomach stuff, we can push through that.
Yeah.
We will make it happen for the people." And I'm like, "All right." Hopped in the shower. I feel good. I have nothing in my stomach, but I feel good to talk about just Arcane on this podcast. This has been one of those that like we have discussed since February this year, being like, when Arcane comes out, that is going to be the last bonus pod. It's an interesting discussion overall because we don't talk TV, we don't talk movies, but obviously this relates to video games. This is a fun little one-off. This is also the conversation that I want to be having this week, just with media in general. All I want to talk about is Arcane. So it's fun to hop on the mics, hang out a little bit with you, get to talk about this awesome show. Connor, how are you feeling?
I'm feeling good. I finished this last night after watching 5 episodes yesterday. I'd been watching 1 or 2 like every few days and then binge the rest of it to get ready for this podcast. It's a lot. A lot happens in this show in those last few episodes. So I'm still kind of letting it wash over me a little bit and getting my final thoughts all together. But these might change, but a lot happens in this show. So I'm still kind of reflecting on that. So.
All right. Before we hop into season 2, I want to preface this with our Arcane background of why we enjoy the show, how we got into the show, and why we're doing a podcast on Arcane in general. Because I feel like a lot of people would have this hit their podcast feed and be like, "They're talking about TV right now?" Obviously, it relates to video games. Obviously, there's that connection. But Connor, how did you get into Arcane?
I just heard that the animation and the story and the characters were excellent, and I think I got in after the show was done for season 1 and just watched the whole thing all in a row. And just there was too much buzz around it to avoid it. And I hopped in with Laura. Laura and I both loved it. Just so many great character moments, so many great fight scenes and choreography and set to really cool music tracks and everything. And obviously it's one of the most impressive visual shows ever made. Even outside of animation, it's just a marvel to look at. And there's just so many great character moments in season 1 that I really did fall in love with, that I love these characters so much. I will say that 4 years is a long time. I did not remember a ton, and I had to watch a recap video and really get more up to speed. But you've watched it multiple times since watching it the first time. I've only watched it the one time. So
Yeah, I've watched Arcane. So really funny, you were the one that got me into it. You were the one being like, "Hey, this needs to be on your radar," and I was like, "I don't know," but 2020, right? 2020 is for the first season. It was winter of pandemic. I remember being at home for Christmas and being like, "Oh, like I just want something to do in between like the family traditions of going to this place with family, getting coffee with ma or something, and just having that opportunity to watch some prestige television in the interim of all that was like super nice." So I throw on the first few episodes and I had the same experience that everyone has in this while watching this show. This art style is a little goofy. It's a little different, but I kind of like it. Do I like it? And then by episode 3, you're like, I love the art style. I love the characters. I want to see where they're going next. And then episode 4 kicks off and you're just on that ride for the next 2 acts, getting your hair blown back at how fucking good this television show is.
Yeah, I think the first act of season 1 like gets you in, and then by episode 3 like you're in. I remember not like being in love with it at
Yeah.
first. It takes a little bit to like kind of really get you hooked in. So yeah, and then it's all gas from there in my opinion.
Yeah.
So
And then I go and I watch the show. I really enjoy the season. I think that it's excellent. Fast forward, I watch it again by myself, being like, basically double checking, heat checking myself, being like, is this really that good? And surely enough, it was that good. Fast forward a little bit more. I then go and we have a poster fair at college. I promise this does pertain to Arcane. We have a poster fair at college. I'm rooming with Shane and then our two buddies, Jake and Chase. And we're having the conversation of like, hey, we should get some posters for the apartment just to like have something on the walls. We have these big walls with no art, nothing on them. And so we're all thinking like, we all have similar tastes and takes. Let's get something that like you like, but also you think everyone else will like. So we had a Childish Gambino poster. We had a Daft Punk poster. We had Igor by Tyler the Creator's album cover poster. Those were the 3 that the other guys got. I got an Arcane poster, and I got made fun of by the guys relentlessly for so long, being like, I mean, like, I get it, you like Arcane, but like, this is an apartment that like everyone's gonna come into. If I bring a girl over on a date and everything, and all of a sudden there's a fucking Arcane poster, that date's not gonna go well, Nick. Like, what's happening here? And I'm just like, it's really good. Trust me. Surely enough, I finally get to sit down with Shane, watch it with him, and he's like, this shit's really fucking good. Like,
Yeah.
it is as good as it gets when it comes to TV. I think that the first season, and then I watched it with a couple other people, and the sentiment around the show has just been, for season 1 with me, this is the number 1 show that I show people on Netflix. Like, if you have Netflix, this is the most prestige television. I think that this first season is better than season 1 of Stranger Things on Netflix. I think it's better than any other season 1. I think it's better than any other show just with that one season. The dynamics between
on Netflix.
On Netflix. No, in general, that first season of TV, I think it is up there with True Detective season 1. I think it's up there with season 4 of Game of Thrones. I think that it's up there with, if you want to like shout out any TV show, I think I can make a case that season 1 is
As good, if not better.
yes, as good if not better. But I think it's definitely the best TV show on Netflix for that first season. Like, once again, we're talking about like the best of the best. So I don't want to speak in complete hyperbole, but I'm like, I think that this first season might be the GOAT. Anyways, I go and I show the show to other people. 5 times I watched season 1. And after 5 times, I'm convinced that, yep, this is the GOAT. So season 2 going into it, Connor's like, I haven't watched this show in years. I haven't spent time with these characters. I forget the world. Like,
so many character names, so much. I just like didn't remember a ton of dynamics. I remember like where we left off. I remembered like specific, like really exciting moments, like the Echo and Jinx fight, like Victor running for the first time, like the stuff like that. I was like, these stuck with me, but like, man, like there was just so much that happened in season 1, and it's been so long that it was good to get a refresher video. And then now with season 2, like I'm horrible with names, so like if I mess up people's names in this, like,
oh yeah, there's a lot.
There's a lot of characters, and but I feel like I was re-ingrained into the world pretty well. Do you want to hop into just like overall thoughts on season 2?
Yeah, that's the direction where I want to take this. I want to kick this one off.
Yeah.
Just to preface this, Arcane season 2, I love. I think that this show is across the board excellent. The thing that takes away from me is going into those final 3 episodes, I told myself, if they stick the landing, this will be the greatest show of all time. I had it going into this like second season and everything at my number 5 show, best show I've ever seen. I had things like Avatar: The Last Airbender above it, Attack on Titan, Succession, some really prestige quality television over it in my personal best TV rankings, which once again, we talk video games. This isn't like something that I go and say I've watched everything, I know everything, but personally it was around number 4 or 5 for me on greatest show ever. With those last 3 episodes, I finished the show and I was like, no, it should be at number 5. Like, I do not think that it is better than Succession. I don't think it's better than Attack on Titan. I don't think it's better than Avatar. But I do think that this show is across the board excellent. I think that the second season is a little bit of a step down. Like I just said, though, with talking about season 1, I think season 1's potentially the GOAT, the legitimate GOAT. So, of course, it's going to be a step down. But I do have a few gripes with the show that are really small, but they are there. But across the board, I think this show is excellent. I think it tells an impactful story. The thing that is the best part about this show is the fact that they're able to wrap up and tell a complete story in 2 seasons, with so many character dynamics, all well beautifully animated, go point A, point B really fast, give us a great 3-act structure where you sort of understand what's going to be happening moment to moment, but it's also its biggest weakness, which is the breakneck speed of this show going and just the dynamics in the second season. You really have to go and like harp on the first season to have any sort of like understanding, being like, okay, this person cares about this person this way, so this act is now excusable because of X, Y, and Z. I know I'm speaking in like a bunch of layman's terms on this and everything, and not getting to the exact point of it. But we will hop into all spoilers and everything. This is a spoiler cast, just a heads up. So don't watch this if you've not watched season 2 and everything. But at the end of the day, this whole show relies on character dynamics that at the end feel a little bit rushed, and that's a little bit of a fault. But other than that, I fucking adore this show. I think it's excellent. Connor, what say you? What do you think of Arcane Season 2?
Yeah, I like Arcane Season 2, and I'm disappointed that I don't like it more. Like, I was trying really hard at points to be very forgiving of certain decision-making aspects that I didn't necessarily agree with, and was just kind of along for the ride. And by the end of it, especially in Act 3, like Nick said, it just feels really rushed. And I think it bites off more than it can chew at times. Like, I love Arcane because of its characters and those dynamics and those moments together, those quiet moments, the Jinx and Echo fight on the bridge. It's very personal. It's two people. It's about them in that moment. And you get some of those earlier in previous acts, in Act 1 and 2 in Arcane Season 2. But by Act 3, it just feels so broad and so magical in its storytelling, that like in supernatural, that it loses those character moments that I really appreciate and love about the show. And I think that it just bites off too much, and there's too many threads that are going on that I don't feel like get adequate explanation or get enough time to breathe. Stuff is happening so fast. There's character dynamics where it's like, these people love each other. Now they don't like each other. Now they do like each other. And it's like, I just felt like I was jerked around a little bit too much when it comes to my emotions, that it still has the best animation I've ever seen in my entire life. I still love these characters. I still love this world. I just wish that it got the time and respect that it deserves. I still think that it has a few of those moments in earlier acts in Act 1 and 2 that I really do love. And then Act 3 has like one of the best episodes in the entire show. I just feel like when it comes to sticking the landing, it just doesn't. I would say like I'm around like a 7.5. Like, I think it's a good show. Like, yeah. But there's just some decision making that I just don't agree with. But it's one of those situations where I think a lot of people do love it and are really enjoying it, and I don't want to take that away from anybody. Like, that's the most important thing. Like, I'm usually on the opposite side of this, where it's like I'm defending something like Kingdom Hearts 3. Like, I think it's great, I love it, and a lot of people are like, no, it's trash, I hate it. And it's like, no. Like, I'll defend this. Or like Final Fantasy 13.
Final Fantasy 13 was the one that came to mind.
But like, so like to be on the other side of it, like I don't like being on the other side of this or whatever, but I can't deny how I feel about this season, which just feels disappointing to me. Where like, and I think it's just because it's such a huge step down from season 1, which I think is close to a 10. Like, I think it's immaculate, and then to get like a good season of television and it be the final season, it feels a little bit more disappointing. But overall, I like it. I just have gripes with it.
Yeah, for me, I'm at like a 9.5, and I rewatching like certain episodes back yesterday and everything. Like, I could convince myself that I'm at a 10 with this also. Like, I think that this is as good as it gets. I still think it is a hell of a recommendation. Like, if you're going to recommend something on Netflix and you have Stranger Things, a show that I think is like really fucking good, season to season, really quality television, I still would recommend this over that. And then the only show on Netflix that competes is Cobra Kai, of course. Okay. Oh, yeah. I was trying to get Connor to roll his eyes, and I accomplished that goal. We're going to hop into it now, act by act, talk about these episodes in the chunks that they deliver it to us, which is a 3-week release, 3 episodes at a time.
How do you feel about that generally?
I fucking love it for this show, because the way that they do it is the storytelling makes sense for it. You're basically getting 2 hour movie, 2 hour movie, 2 hour movie.
Right.
And like the fact that there are in the first season those time skips that like happen and make sense in the world and everything. The same thing happens here. It allows you to go and have these characters develop off screen, which is really important when you're talking about an 18 episode run, a second season that is 9 episodes long. You have to go and make certain assumptions with these time skips and everything. But the act by act structure allows you as the viewer to go and conjure up some of these emotions, being like, okay, that makes sense because it's been X amount of time. You can assume that this happened, that happened and everything. But I think that where are you at when it comes to the 3 act structure? And then also, where are you at when it comes to the first season having that structure compared to the second and everything?
I felt like in the first season, the threads between each act felt a lot more tangible. Where, like, yeah, sure, they're telling 3 different arcs, but they all feel like they're leading one into the next, into the next. Here, they feel very distinct and very separate from each other a little bit more so, especially that third act feels like we're just jumping to like a new like the second act is about Vi and Jinx, and then we're talking about like intergalactic or like space magic type like world ending calamity, and like
I mean,
personal, very broad. Like it feels a little bit disjointed, and I didn't really love that aspect of it, but I do like this rollout kind of way of doing it.
Yeah.
I always prefer like the week to week, like so you can have those discussions. But
and the week to week on this was fucking awesome. I didn't say this. I watched Act 3 when it came out. I stayed up till 3 a.m. and then watched till 5 in the morning and cried and cheered and the whole nine. Like I adored what this was. But like I think that having those water cooler moments and having those Discord discussions with everyone being like, what did you think of this? And the amount of love for this show. I think Connor has a great point being like, he normally is the champion of things that people are not a huge fan of. Now that this is finished up and there's been a lot of discourse of your opinion on it compared to how everyone else is feeling, and some of the gripes that you've had with it have been super awesome. Like I love having those types of discussions.
Right.
I've been waiting to hop on the mics with you.
Don't let me nitpicking, or I don't necessarily think the things I'm saying are nitpicks, but don't let me like overanalyzing something like this take away from your experience. Like if you can look past these things and like don't really care or like find the explanations for certain things satisfying, then like that's great. Like that's really kind of how I feel about it, because there are explanations for some of the issues that I have. I just don't feel like the explanations are adequate for me personally. But I think that, I mean, like the big gripe, let's just jump into this just briefly, is I'm blanking on his name right now. Warwick Vander. Yeah. Him coming back. Like, I don't love that aspect. Like, he's used as like a pawn to drive the story forward and doesn't really seem to like, I wish that they go and bring him to Victor and they're trying to get him back, and then they don't get him back. And then it's just like, okay, well that's over now. And then they like reanimate him again.
Yeah.
Just to use him again. Like, he just very much feels like a pawn added to the board to drive the story in a certain direction. But it never felt like why him? Why is this guy experimenting on this guy? And I understand that there are in-universe explanations and kind of foreshadowing in season 1 about it, but like that was like my big frustration at first. And honestly, if that was used in a way that I felt like was really satisfying, I'd be like, yeah, great. Like, they're doing something interesting with this. And that fight with him and Jinx, so cool with the music and everything. Like, awesome.
Ridiculous. Him breaking into the facility and everything and just
probably my favorite
fucking
fight.
shit up is so good. Let's hop into Act 1 as a whole now with this, because I feel like this is a perfect lead way. I think Act 1 is basically the 3 narrative acts of the first season, where like episode 1 is complete setup. It is world building post Jinx terrorist act, like how the whole world is affected by that. Second episode is building up what's happening in the underground and how Jinx is affecting that. And then the third episode is Jinx versus Vi. And like basically in the first season, it felt like, all right, first episode is world build, or first act is world building. Second act is what is happening on the underground with Vi and Kate going down there. And then the third act is Jinx versus Vi. How does this actually result? And then the result is a terrorist attack. I think that they nailed re-entering everyone back into this world. But the whole issue with this show is questioning, are we using our time the most wisely? Because we have 9 episodes,
Yeah.
and every single moment on screen needs to be the best like service of what we're moving like the story forward or these characters forward, or the animation needs to be off the fucking charts to not worry about something like that in the moment. Where like I get to episode 2, for example, and the underground story with these different factions, I'm like, I think this is cool. This is a solid episode 2. But now that the season is over, I'm like, could we have taken a little bit more time to explore Jinx's relationship with somebody else or Vi's relationship with somebody else? Could we get a little bit more Echo screen time? Because he is just completely he's not
barely in
here.
the show.
He's not here for the whole
He gets a dedicated episode later on, but like, man, like I felt the same way about Jace as well. Like he's in the show, like, but he's just so much less important than he was in the previous season.
Really funny. I feel like at the end of the day, though, all the characters get less screen time unless your name is Mbessa or Caitlyn. Like everyone, it feels like is well underdeveloped compared to season 1, but that is adding new pieces to the board.
There's so much going on. It's just they're juggling too many pieces that like they need to give time and it's just really difficult. Like I do not envy the position that they're in with 9 episodes.
Yeah.
Like that's really the crux of a lot of like the feelings I have is that like I don't know how you fix this problem with the 9 episodes. Like if you like, that's just the hand that they're dealt, and they need to kind of manage that a little bit.
And I think that they managed it very well. But like the issue, it is an issue. Like I think that everyone that loves this show, especially, would agree, being like, "Oh, we could have used a couple more episodes. Like we could have used, especially in this season. I think season 1, masterpiece. We needed 9 episodes, and they did the thing in 9 episodes, perfectly. But this like season, we needed more Jace on a screen. We needed more Echo on screen. Honestly, that like one Echo episode, they accomplished the goal in 1 episode of trying to tell his story of like what would that different world be. But like, could you imagine like 3 episodes in that world and like really having him figure out who he is as a person and really diving into the themes of what this character is supposed to be, other than somebody that really cares about his friends and really cares about like standing up for what's right for others and everything. I rely and relate to the fact that like this show really needs a little bit more time to breathe, and that's not a bad thing. That's not the end of the world, but it does need more time to breathe.
So I mean, let's just go back into the first act 1. I like this act a lot. I think this act is great, honestly. Like I was still very much on board during this act. I think that there's 2 key scenes that I want to talk about. I want to talk about the fight with Savika, is that her name?
Yeah.
With the arm.
Yeah, Savika and
Jinx, and then and the one guy, the like little gremlin dude.
Ridiculous.
I want to talk about it. Was super cool. Looks awesome. Why is there a slot machine on her arm? Like it seems like so counterintuitive to fighting. It's like, oh, we need to just hope that we get the good one.
Do you know what I thought of when I saw the slot machine? I thought of Zach from fucking Final Fantasy VII Crisis Core's, the slot mechanic that's going 24/7. I'm like, that is what I'm about. Thank you for doing that. Shout out Zach from Final Fantasy VII. But like, yeah, the animation, it's ridiculous, but it's also Jinx is fucking ridiculous.
Really cool fight, like really interesting. Love the music and everything during that fight. Awesome. And I think that the Vi and Jinx fight at the end of the act really great as well.
I want to my favorite moment from Act 1 is for sure the opening of the whole show with the art, like different art styles and the grays and like the blues that are just popping out to show Caitlyn's grief and everything. I am just fucking in love. Like I'm so deeply affected, being like, this shit is fucking awesome. Like we are so fucking back. It's insane. And having the board be structured how it was with that first council meeting and everything, and having invested in the corner and having it be 3 counselors left and being like, oh shit, we're fucked. Like we lost. Like we completely and utterly lost. And then being shot off in that direction. But the thing that Act 1 suffers from, in my opinion, is the issue of the whole show. Where's Jace? Where's Victor? Like, dude, even Victor in this act,
Victor is straight up gooped up at the start of this. Laura and I were laughing, and it was like, dude's just chilling and goop, which is cool. Like, I do like, I like what they set up and how he like goes into the underground and like kind of just goes and fucks off and like starts healing people. Like, I think that was an interesting like start to his arc, and then like you just get so many little like tidbits of him throughout the show after that with Victor that like I wish I had like a little bit more time to like see that his like mind changing and like how
Yeah.
he like comes to these conclusions. Like he just goes off and kind of does the thing, and I wish that they explained it a little bit more.
Which I think though the whole thing is he's being controlled by the arc. Like this is where I'm able to be like, I love Victor's whole story in this, which I think is something that you have a little bit of a gripe with as the season continues on. But
Oh no, I don't really have much of a gripe with
Okay.
Victor, honestly.
yeah, but I love the character development for him and seeing moment to moment, like every single time he's on screen. One, the second you get Celestial Victor, it's like, oh, the animation is just write it off. Like this is
Right.
fucking ridiculous. But the moment to moment growth that he had in his relationship with Jace, like getting to that finale felt good for me, being like, these two characters, in my opinion, have the second best dynamic on camera besides Vi and Jinx. Like, I
Yeah.
think that the Jason Victor relationship is like,
It's really
as
good
good
in
as it
season
gets.
1. I don't think that they utilize it enough in season 2. There's not enough screen time with
Yeah.
the two of them. That like, and Jace is like going and doing something else for like a little bit, obviously, especially in Act 3, like when he's just in fucking hell or whatever. Like, but like I wish there was more like back and forth between them, or like more discussions, I guess. So
yeah. And I like I said at the start of this, it feels like everyone didn't have enough screen time in this
Right.
entire season. And so you have to fill in some of those blanks with your either imagination or what you've previously seen. And I think what this show does very well, and especially in season 1, but it still delivers in season 2, is they show you so much that they don't rely on telling basically ever. Like
Right.
good television shows character development, it shows relationship building. It doesn't say, hey, we're good pals because we said that, now you believe it, now we're going forward. And you have to go and rely on what you've been shown beforehand, and then you're like, this is good shit. For me, the relationship between Victor and Jace was, although I could use more screen time, I think was very well done throughout this entire season. And I think that it also though sets up in this first act exactly what the story that they're going to be going on. This is like Jace obviously has relationships with Mel, has relationships with Vi, but at the end of the day, the core relationship is him and Victor and how they respond to each other.
Yeah.
And I think that it was done so well, especially early on, being like, hey, all I care about is my friend. I'm going, like, the show starts and it's him running to the hex core to try to go and save his buddy, and like
Right.
that's all that fucking matters. I don't care that we just got blown to hell. All that matters is my friend. And that relationship, the way that it builds and crumbles at the end of the season and everything, of him becoming Jesus and everything and going to the underground, like I was all about their relationship and the development and the course that went on. The other thing that I want to call out early on in this first act is Caitlyn. If you don't love Caitlyn like as a character, or they were not your favorite in this show, I can understand that like this season might not be as much for you, because she is, in my opinion, like the whole star of the show. And it all starts off, this first season or second act or second season first act starts out with Caitlyn. This is all Caitlyn. This is all like her relationship with her father being shown, her relationship with Vi being shown, her relationship with these other enforcers starting to develop and everything. Like, I fucking loved this shit. I loved every single thing that she was a part of in this first act, and I was willing to give up some Echo time. I was willing to give up some Hybrid Digger time at the time, especially because I'm like, oh,
We'll get
we'll
more.
get that
Yeah.
later, and we didn't get
Do
a ton of it.
they get sucked into the Arcane or whatever it is? I'm sorry, like Arcane and Hex Tech and
Hex Core.
and then like there's like the rune magic as well.
Yeah.
Like that they all kind of blur together when it comes
Yeah.
to the terminology. But do they go into that underground place and get zapped into their other universes in Act 1, or is that later?
I think that's the end of Act 1.
Yeah,
right?
that's what I thought.
It's the end of Act 1.
Okay, and then we don't see them again until Act 3.
Yeah.
Wow.
The funny part is like Act 2 is all Vi and Jinx's relationship in Vander. Like it is
Wild.
Okay. Caitlyn is now gonna be like a fascist. Like she's all out for war, baby. Like that.
Yeah.
It's all about being under Ambessa's thumb. And then it is Vi's relationship being like, I'm a complete shutout. Do we want to just officially move to Act 2 and
let's get
everything?
into Act 2.
Well,
Well, the first episode is just Jinx and Isha,
Yep.
and like Isha like using Jinx as like a symbol, and everybody's using her as a symbol, and she wants to kind of like start a revolution. And she like kind of like incites a riot and everything, and then they all get brought into the prison cell, and Jinx goes to get Isha out, and that's when we get the Vander fight, which I think is so cool. It has like Doom music,
Yeah.
like straight up Mick Gordon, like just fucking shredding fucking music. Well, that's
So
why
good.
such a great fight. I think that's the highlight of the entire season. And when it's revealed that it's Vander, it's like in that moment I'm like, okay, I don't like this very much. I think it's a little bit lazy to bring back a dead character like this. It's a little convenient. I don't really like it when any show does this.
Yeah.
But let's see how it goes. I was very much on board at this point.
Yeah.
I was still okay with it.
For me, because the end of season 1 ends with this werewolf hung up, strapped up, and everything. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna pull out my phone. Who the fuck is this in League?
Yeah.
I
had no idea.
The fan theories immediately hit my phone and are like, oh, this is Vander. And I'm like, cool. I wonder how they're gonna pull this off and everything.
Right.
More importantly, how are they gonna go and like not just make it make sense, but how is this emotional chess piece gonna be used? And I think it's fucking excellent. I love it. I think that the best scene in the entire show, beating out Echo and Jinx's fight, beating out Victor running, beating out the final scene with Silco and the whole basically the final moments of season 1 and everything, which is just brilliantly scored, brilliantly animated. But it does my favorite thing, which is you put the characters in a table situation and you just let them talk. You let them go and finally have that final conversation. Love that in season 1. This season, right after we get the Vander reveal and everything, Vi and Jinx meet up and they have a conversation. And it is the best conversation in the whole show because it is the two characters that fucking hate each other, but they still love each other. Obviously, clearly, it's the dynamic that goes and pushes this whole show forward is they hate each other, but they love each other and they have completely different ideals. But the coolest part is we now have them so geometrically opposed. They're so against each other. We have Vi being an enforcer, which goes against everything that she wanted to live up to be. We have Jinx being a symbol of not just the underground, but just of like future and hope and destruction and terrorism. And it's like, okay, we are so far apart. Let's put these two characters right next to each other and have them talk.
It just didn't hit as hard for me because it just like I said, like she goes and gets Vi. Jinx goes and gets Vi. They have that fight in the apartment. And it just feels so fast. Like they forget and forgive and like have that conversation. And I think the conversation's good and everything, and it's relatively satisfying. I wanted a little bit more strife, a little bit more back and forth, maybe like some sort of moments outside of this to bring them together even more. That it would feel more earned. It just felt like really like out of the blue to me. Like it was like, oh, they have so much history over the last X amount of time that we've been watching these characters that like for them to just come back together for Vander, which I understand like Vander is like the key point for them. Like I understand why, but at the same time, like it felt really fast.
For me, it made sense where you have this like Vi completely becoming a shutout, going and being a ring fighter and everything, and like just her life's ruined.
Black hair, badass.
Yeah, sick as fuck. All right, but like her life is ruined. Like she is not in a good place by
Kate
any
and her
means.
break up.
Yeah, because Kate and her break up. But like it's not just that Kate and her break up. I think that she just loses faith in everything that's happening. She loses faith in the enforcers. She loses faith in Caitlyn. She just is like, all right, I have no one. I am gonna get drunk every day and I'm gonna beat people up. And like that's just gonna be my life for now, and that is a really sad life, and I think that she knows that. And so when you have a moment where they finally get on camera together, it's like, okay, we're feeling good, we're doing the damn thing. It makes sense. Let's talk. Like, you have both. Like, I also think that in this moment, Jinx is like, I'm doing something with my life that we initially set out to do, which was like go and stand up for the underground. That's all we've been trying to do since day one, since our parents have been taken away. Vander, that's all he wanted to do. He was always trying to stand up for the underground, do it the right way and everything. And she's like, I'm not necessarily doing it the right way, but also like you did the one thing that we said we would never do, which is put on that uniform and become a top-siding piece of shit, basically. And I just love this interaction. It is finally these two characters not being the fuck out of each other. We've had that. But like
Yeah.
the thing that I loved at the end of season 1 so much was have the conversation. Let these two characters that have such great dynamics, Ella Purnell and Haley Steinfeld, are just on the top of their fucking game, killing it and just acting their asses off. And then you have a super great moment with like they're having this conversation, and then Isha also this dynamic between her and Jinx, which is just like so pure, so sisterly, motherly almost. Like it is so fucking cool and amazing to have her just around being like, wait, no, like Jinx still has some level of humanity left with the way that she's able to build up this relationship. This was the first moment in the entire show that I'm like, I know what we're going to try to go and do, which is a Jinx redemption arc, but you're making really good points here because you have this relationship being shown, because you have these characters finally talking to each other. I adore it. Like this is the moment of the show for me.
Jinx's dynamic with Isha is excellent. I really do love that.
Yeah.
That back and forth in the way that they display that she like can still retain some of that humanity. And then they go off with Vander and they bring him to Victor
Jesus
to get healed. And this is where I was like, oh, cool. Like this is the goal of the show. Like this is where we're going. And it's still very character focused. Like, and I liked this stuff a lot. And I'm like, cool. Like we get more quiet moments. And then Caitlin shows up with Vi, and she gets down to the ground, and they have this whole falling out. Totally fine.
Do you want to know what we call this, Connor?
Totally fine immediately.
Connor, love and sexual chemistry, baby. That's all it took. That's all it fucking took. She got tossed one time, got cupcakes once, and it was over. It is funny though. Looking at Wikipedia, shout out to Wikipedia, just trying to keep my thoughts on track of what happens episode to episode. Those like when Mbeza gets Caitlyn, there is hesitation, like during that moment, being like, oh, like you are not. Like you wanted to go and pull in Hex Tech into all this and like utilize that, and she's really against that because she has that relationship with Jace and everything. So there was a little bit of like wary when it came to her relationship with Mbeza.
But they do over those last couple episodes kind of show like, oh, she's very much in Mbeza's
well, I mean,
camp.
yeah, they're
like,
fighting each other.
They are
like,
together. They are a team. And then like the first chance she gets to betray her, does it immediately.
Love and sexual chemistry makes people do dumb shit.
It's just very convenient. It's fast. That's just how the whole show feels to me. Is that like I get the overarching like why, I just don't like the execution as to how it is portrayed to me. And then with Jace showing up.
Yeah.
And fucking hammering Victor. First of all, this is where the show kind of goes off the rails for me. Like this is where I.
So
call
the episode 6 is I get a call from Connor, and he's like, "What am I watching?"
Because it felt like we were going in a direction with these characters,
I felt
with
like
the overarching story that we're trying to get Warwick. Why Vander? Why I keep forgetting his name? Because you keep throwing me off because you kept calling him Warwick, and I'm like, I call him Vander, and then you're like, no, it's Warwick. And I'm like, but
no, in League of Legends, it's Warwick. The name's Vander. Either I think suffice, but Connor was like, okay, we need to make sure that we call him Vander. I'm like, I got it, and then we were solid.
We're trying to get Vander back. And they're in the commune, and they have to give over their weapons. And then Jace shows up with a fucking hammer rocket launcher thing, and they're like, "Yeah, just go right in." And I'm like, that just doesn't make any sense.
It's not good.
It's like, why did they let him just go blow up Victor?
So,
like, I don't really understand. If you have an explanation for me, this is how I feel about any of this. If there is good explanations and like you can convince me otherwise, I am all ears. Like I want to be convinced. Like I want to like this so badly that like I'm open to it. But these are just like the little things that like just kind of added up to me that like in why and how and like that all makes sense after these episodes in Act 3. I can accept it. In the moment, though, I was like, what is happening? Like, what is going on? So then Vander freaks out and becomes all monstery and magma-y, or like he's got lava like coming out of him.
For fire.
And Isha sacrifices herself, which I think like is a really good emotional moment, but it's another one of those that like it almost kind of feels unnecessary. It's like
It
just run away.
it
Like
does
I
feel
don't know.
unnecessary, but
But
dialing back to episode 4 when they have the moment where it is Isha standing up as a symbol for Jinx. Isha wants to fight. That's Isha's
yeah,
whole deal. Isha in the first like when Jinx finds Isha and like saves her and everything is like, I want to be the fighter. I want to be the
mhm,
person that saved me. And so having a moment where she can do that is I think makes total sense. Where like feels unnecessary, but works with what that character is. And like what a fucking gut punch that is. Just like
yeah.
I'm on the couch. I'm not good after that one. Like it is totally worked for me. Extremely emotionally impactful. I think very well written for who that character is. The dynamic between her and Jinx was built up enough where it was a like that's another thing where we have Isha now on the table in the same way that Mbessa's like character does need to be developed. They developed characters that were not as much focal points in the first season, and I think everyone though wants a little bit more Jinx and Vi's relationship on camera, a little bit more Jason Victor's
We haven't talked
relationship.
about Mel at all yet.
Yeah, Mel is
They don't give her enough time.
Mel's whole character arc. I feel like is rough this season.
Yeah.
I think that it is the number one.
The
Personally,
black, like it was just so convoluted. Like I was just trying to like even understand it with the Black Rose
Yeah.
and like her magical power and her brother and her relationship with her mother. And it's like I think I get it, but at the same time, like it doesn't seem like it's really important necessarily.
that was the whole issue with it for me, where I'm like, okay, you're in prison. You're eventually going to get out of prison, and there's going to be something that happens. There's going to be some realizations, but this, in my opinion, was the most. Oh, we're building up to an Arcane universe type thing, where like this is all going to be important for that.
Yeah.
This is not important for
So
this.
this studio is not doing anything else, period,
Yeah.
for a league. They're like, we cannot do
Yeah.
this again. It's too expensive. And this show cost $250 million to make, which is crazy. So I'm intrigued to see how they manage to do more. They want to do more.
They
obviously.
need to hit up a different studio and bring in some more writers that like.
And just do they just need? But it needs this animation style.
Oh, well, I think that they're gonna go and rip the animation style too.
I just don't. I can't
You
trust
don't
anybody
trust
else
it, yeah.
to pull that off.
Yeah.
It's so impressive. It's so good.
The show the entire time the word that keeps on coming to mind is bold. Like
Yeah.
the animation style is so in your face that it's like if you do not put respect on animation's name, like we are going to fucking make you wrong. Like it
It's
is
the
that
best
good.
animation I've ever seen.
Yeah,
Like, it's ridiculous.
It is as good as it gets from an animation style.
So I where we're at after Act 2, I like a lot of these episodes individually. Like I said, I just have gripes with little moments.
My number one issue after Act 2, and it gets rectified in Act 3, which is Vander dying after a couple episodes of coming back.
Yeah.
Something I hate in all media. You cannot bring somebody back to just kill them off. It is a cheap, impactful moment. Like Vander dying in that moment for me I had no emotion.
Right.
I'm like, we already did this. The thing that got me was Isha dying,
yeah.
which I think that they did well, and I think that they kind of knew that. Where they're like, all right, we're gonna give this Isha flashback and everything. Another moment of the show, though, for me, just like as good as humanly possible. Silco, Vander, Vi's mom, that flashback. This happens in this act. Off the charts. Once again, giving characters with awesome dynamics that we know very well. And like another example is the Silco and Vander relationship is as good as the Jinx and Vi dynamic in season 1.
Yeah.
So anytime that they're both on camera, sign me the fuck up.
This is why I love the show. It's like these moments.
Yeah.
And I don't think we get enough of them in this season. That's really kind of the crux of a lot
Let's
of
be real. Nothing will ever beat Jinx and Echo's dynamic in season 1 with the boy savior moment. That is the best minute of animation anyone's ever seen in their entire life.
Well, you get to see episode
and
7.
then we get to episode 7. Let's see, Connor, podcasting leadway. Boom, there
which
we go.
we finally see Echo again after not
3
seeing
episodes
him for forever.
The whole
What feels
act.
like forever. Like he's Echo is literally in this season, outside of this one episode, for like 10 minutes.
Yeah,
which is it's crazy. Like I
also
want more.
I
of
also
these
want to shout out
characters.
though that in season 1, he's not in a lot of season 1 either. Like he is not a full-fledged character. He is barely in Act 1. He comes out in Act 2 swinging on the fucking hoverboard. Super sick moment in the Piltover day and everything. That like fight scene. And then once again, we don't really get him on camera. He like does some stuff with Heimerdinger and like their relationship starts to build, but we don't have this like just straight to the moon level of this is the direction we're going with Echo. He was always a side character in this. Him and Heimerdinger are like similar level of characters of where they're trying to take them, which is a disappointment. But then we get, in my opinion, just like if this was just a single episode of TV,
yeah,
this might be the best episode of TV this year.
That's honestly like it's a double-edged sword for me, where it's like in the moment I was like, oh, there's so much, there's not enough time.
Yeah.
Like we only have 2 episodes after this, and there's so many threads to tighten up and finish out. And to have this episode here, it was like I was frustrated in the moment, but now like looking back on it, it's like just taking the episode for what it is. It's a great episode.
Yeah.
I think that when it comes to Echo and Jinx and seeing, or well, I guess Powder in this instance, and their relationship blossom, and him like having this great life and having to leave it behind to go save his universe, I think is really powerful. I think Jace just like fucking going through it is so funny.
I didn't like know where or how to post this, but you've seen 22 Jump Street. I haven't seen this at all, but there's the moment where they both take acid, and you have Jonah Hill in hell, and then you have fucking Channing Tatum with ass and titties and like dancing. I'm like, that is Echo. He's in the like Candyland, and then we have Jason literal hell.
I've seen a lot of good memes on that. Did you know that Victor was the sage who gave?
Yes,
I knew him. I knew very early.
Well, also though it's storytelling 101 of like, okay, we've been around the block enough.
Yeah.
Who could this be? Because it will be somebody of importance. The only person it could be is Jace himself. Like if there's some sort of time of fucking,
maybe.
Or it's Victor. And I was like, you can't do time travel with 2 episodes left, and then they do time travel with 2 episodes left.
Yeah, it makes sense though.
But
like, I can live with that.
It
And then
all
also
works
Echo's character in League, like it's like a time thing or whatever. So like it makes sense for there to be timey-wimey stuff.
Yeah.
So I thought that whole episode great, wonderfully animated. The character dynamics, like I said, excellent. Getting to see some characters again that we haven't seen since season 1 because they die or whatever. Great. Like the crew and everything.
Once again, one of the moments of the show, Vander and Silco behind the bar together and talking about forgiveness and like what that means, and the way like there's so many one-liners in this episode where they're like, you know, so and so always said, like, just like, and that back and forth and dynamic of just every single line trying to go and convince and plead with the other person some sort of emotional stake is just so fucking good. Like, I think that this episode, you take it for what it is, great. I also think that, like I said, the stones that it must take to be like, all right, we are on a one-way trip. It's going to be act 3. And then to go and take that moment to allow for something like this is extremely bold. But I think that they pull it off with everything that they try to do.
But I do think the effects of this episode being here does factor into the final 2, just with how rushed it felt.
For sure. And then we get to the final 2 episodes, Killing is a Cycle and The Dirt Under Your Nails. What do you think, Con?
I mean, I really kind of just smushed these episodes together.
Yep.
So like Jinx is freaking out, obviously, and like not in a good place after Isha dies. Never mentions Isha. Nobody ever mentions Isha for the rest of the show, which I felt like they could have lingered on that a little bit more and utilized that emotional stake a little bit better. And like she's not in a good place, and Caitlyn and Vi are just like back together, like totally fine or whatever. They have their moment in the jail cell, like right after Jinx is like, I'm gonna go off the deep end. They're like smooching time. Yeah. And I'm like, okay, that felt a little weird.
Love and sexual chemistry, baby. And like okay, this is
sure.
Why not?
Yeah, it's very much like all right. So then that happens, and the build up to the end, like just with how they're bringing back Vander again, when he was propped back up, like that they were gonna try to like pump him back into reality. I was like, no way, they're gonna use him again.
By the way, I needed it. I needed that to happen to like be like, all right, they brought him back and he will now have purpose for the rest of the show. Yeah. Compared to bringing him back and having it be 2 episodes. I think that is way more unforgivable to do it, like have him on screen for 20 minutes compared to like, all right, now he's actually a key factor. Instead of him feeling like a pawn in this whole story, it felt like, all right, the emotional weight and stake of who this character is at the core of this show, he is so impactful. He is the relationship between Vi and Jinx. Like, he is a focal point. So I was very excited that they were bringing him back, but I totally agree being like, no fucking way. Like, we're doing this.
I was like, okay. And then it's really kind of just ramping up towards the war with Victor and Bessa. They're gonna go try to get to the Hex Gate and kind of take over the minds of everybody. Victor wants to like make everybody equal, I guess, is like his
Yeah.
overarching goal. And Ambessa wants power.
Well,
and
I also want to
his
say
army.
it's Victor wants that, but also the Arcane is like fucking him up. Like
Okay.
he's not like 100%. He is 100% him, but he's also like he has a hive mind that is stemming off of him. So he's not in the best frame of mind in general. Where like I feel like his motivations this season make sense for his character. Makes sense that he's like getting drugged up and everything, and like is going to be a little bit loopy in the head because of that. Like he gets out of the hex core in episode 3, and he's like, time to be Jesus, time to start like a revolution and everything. And it's like, all right, like you understand that that's not 100% who Victor is and everything, leaving that latest episode. But starting from like episode 7-ish of season 1 and everything, it sort of makes sense with the direction he goes. And I feel like ever since we finished episode 6, it was already written in the sand of what this finale is going to be. It's going to be war between all these people that are all victored up and Ambessa's army versus the people of the Undercity and Piltover.
I just don't like that. It loses the central characters in the sauce. You know what I mean? Like where Vi and Jinx in this final battle like feel like side characters.
Oh, yeah.
They get like a small little moment where they're fighting Warwick in the fucking
Vents.
And then like Jinx dies, quote unquote, for like
Jinx
no reason.
Jinx is
like
100% alive.
Yeah.
100%.
But like he seems like he's just there just to like create that one moment where she can sacrifice herself, and it's just like I don't like.
What my number?
I
one
wanted more of this whole dynamic to make it feel earned.
The number one issue I have with this is Vi crying on the propeller, and then like Jinx literally is like, just come over here. Like if you just come over here,
oh my God,
we're both fine. And it's
it
like
feels very convenient.
Yeah.
It
It feels very. This is like where I'm like, you are designing this to be a cheap moment.
Yeah.
Especially, I'm like, why does Vander snap back to reality? Oh, there goes like in that moment. No one else is really snapping back and having a moment. I obviously the dude's drugged to all being, so it's not like completely unacceptable to me, but it is like you said. Part of me wish it was the other way around, where you have Jinx on the propeller, and Vi being like, "Come on," and like Jinx, who's emotionally unstable and everything, but they both are, and like they both are really care for this character. To see them officially dead, but I'm like, you kind of already thought they were dead. Like this whole moment didn't work for me, but I love that. Like, okay, we have 40 minutes to work with here. Let's give one of the most interesting dynamics of season 2 is Ambessa and Caitlyn. Let's give them their fucking moment. That moment and Mel coming in and like just all that worked for me. All of it worked for me so much.
What's the orange-haired girl's Maddie? Is that her
name? Maddie just catching a stray.
Everybody online hates her or whatever. Which I mean, like, dude, Kate is just like does not care about that relationship at all.
I mean, she says
they introduce it, and I'm like, oh, this is gonna be like a thing, like where Vi's gonna be jealous, and like, and it's like she's like, I don't care. Okay.
I mean, I will say this though, like. There's been breakups I've had where it's like, all right, I just want like she's a rebound. Like that's at the end of the day what that relationship was.
Yeah.
Like,
no, I get it.
And then the fact that there was the turn and everying, and she takes a bullet
was funny.
And like I've seen so many people making edits and like doing goofy ass shit with it, and it's fun. But like and
then Echo and Jinx like getting them together again, really cool.
So for me, the dynamic that was the Echo and Jinx stuff on the oh my fucking God, so good. And him just rewinding time and just being like, oh, like it's always dance with you is such a fucking good line. But them having that moment, terrific. But for me, I felt halfway through episode 4 we had that conversation between Vi and Jinx, and that was all I needed for the rest of the show with their relationship. Like for me, they came to some level of understanding, and there wasn't going to be this like head-to-head combat anymore.
It just that's what the show is billed
Yeah.
as for me, is their relationship, and to have it kind of peak out in that moment, like that's kind of where it really is left. Like they have this good moment and they feel good about each other, and then they just feel the same about each other basically for the rest of the show. And it's like I wanted more time to like kind of get to that point. Episode 4 is very early to get to that point.
Well, I think though that the reliance for the last few episodes is all right. Now we're going to do Victor and Jace's relationship, and then Caitlin and Bessa and Mel's relationship. Those are the two like main focal points of the rest of the season. Where I completely understand. If you ask anyone, what is this show? It is Vi and Jinx's relationship. Season 1 is all Vi and Jinx's relationship. I do think though, by the time we finish episode 3, I did feel a little bit like, how many rounds are we going to get Vi versus Jinx?
Right.
And I don't want that.
I think could have been episode 6.
Okay.
Is what I'm saying. Like you could have done more to like kind of spend more time with this, and like if you don't have, then eventually get to the Vander thing and have that all be like kind of.
But then we're talking season 3. Like that's where it's like we.
Well, personally, I think
season.
the whole point of season 3 should have been getting Vander back, and the end should have been them like
season 2 you mean?
Yeah, sorry. Like that should, I thought that was what we were working towards. It feels like, this is what I keep going back to in my head, it feels like Star Wars episode 8 where in the Last Jedi that episode ends and it doesn't feel like there's like a natural place to go in a different direction, and you only have one episode left like to go make another movie and like kind of like have, and that's how it feels in Act 2, where it's like, okay, like this was the goal, the getting Vander back was the goal, and that's over now. And it's like, okay, but now we have to do something else and it's like we only have 3 episodes left to like do something else.
I do think though that the whole season starts with, all right, and Bessa's in the corner. It's a build up to her starting this war.
I guess I just don't really care about her arc necessarily. Like I think that she's like a good piece on the board as like a vehicle for Caitlyn to like have that dynamic with her, but like overall, like her like war want for power is like the least interesting aspect, like because it's the characters that I really care about. Like I don't really care about these broad political issues. I care about like Victor and Jace's relationship and Caitlyn and Vi's relationship and Jinx and Vi's relationship. Like that's what I care about. So when it becomes that's the central focus of the final arc outside of the one episode, that like I care way less. You know what I mean?
But for me, it was like you have like Jace and Victor ice cream with Mbessa sprinkles on top. Like it was this extra little sidecar that we were having to the rest of the meal.
It's the other way.
Which like I feel like the Victor and I mean the show ends with the climax of being those two characters compared to Mbessa.
The whole war that is going on is from Mbessa.
Oh yeah. Well, no, it's from Victor going and having this army.
Mbessa is using Victor.
I think it's a little bit of the other way around.
Okay.
Where
I
like
felt
they're
she was like, we're gonna go fuck them up or whatever.
I think she's like, we're gonna go fuck them up, and Victor's just like, I just need to get to the hex core and then it's game over and I win.
Yeah.
And so, or the hex gates, a lot of hexes. But this all worked for me. I will say though, when it comes to Mbessa's character, the fact that Mel is off screen so much this season and they don't have that dynamic, it does make her a weaker character, because season 1 was all that dynamic in that building and like the friction starting, and then it sort of just goes away until we finally get one moment where they're back on camera together before this war scene and everything. And it's like, all right, this is not perfect. And then once again, love this fucking show.
And then Echo comes in, flies in with his time machine and it's fucking him up or whatever. He's the final stand.
The boy savior, dude.
He does the damn thing, and then Jace comes up and they hold hands and have a romantic little moment, and they explode into the into the galaxy or whatever it is at the end, and they're dead, I guess.
Yep.
So many main characters apparently. Like this hurts like the League of Legends lore, because it is canon. Like people are very confused apparently online, which I think is interesting. I know nothing, so like I'm like whatever.
I will say though, like you got these two that exploded. Maybe they're just ethereal now. Maybe they're just beings, and then you got Jinx who's fucking alive. Which like I finished the show. I'm like, Jinx is dead. Cool. And then I rewatched the last 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
I'd rather her be dead, honestly.
Jinx is so alive. It's insane. I think that her story works well with like the end of it being her flying away.
Yeah, I mean, like, I just the emotional moment of her dying, like, it feels like it's just ripped away from you because it's like, oh, I'm sad about this, and then it's like, no, you shouldn't be sad about this
Here's the
actually
thing, though.
because she's alive.
Completely disagree. Where that moment, like we said earlier, was done, in my opinion, so poorly
Yeah.
that like I was like, don't let this be the death of a character and have it be in a silly way. Like
Right.
at the end of the day, that was my number two issues with this entire season that really stuck out to me was do not bring a character back to kill them 3 episodes later, and then that got rectified by like having Vander be a piece later.
He dies anyways.
So
Like,
but that's
whatever.
fine to me, being like, all right, there's a finality to what his purpose was,
Yeah.
but it was not served in those 3 episodes. Like if it really was just to get them back together and not have any emotional stake of like them actually having a conversation beyond that, fuck that. But they bring him back, great. Then that last moment, I was like, this moment literally is gonna like drop me to a 9 out of 10 score on this show because I think it's so egregious of that conversation. And like, you cannot have Jinx say, come here and you're safe. Like, let the audience think that, but like, don't say it being like, oh no, Vi couldn't make that jump or something. But they say that in a way that I'm just like, you totally just got Jinx murdered. Like that is all on you, Vi. Like, and it is not done well. But because Jinx isn't dead and it really is just taking Vander / Warwick away, I'm completely fine with it, and I honestly prefer it. But I think, end of the day, great finale, worked with me very well. What do you think of the Victor time travel? Like we just discussed it a little bit,
Cool.
but just like all of
Yeah.
the permutations of him being like, hey, you need to not allow, like basically
You're the only one who can convince me that this is like the way
Wrong.
things need to be. Yeah.
And when they touch each other and like his mask gets like peeled away a little bit. Did you watch Obi-Wan?
Yeah.
So, slight spoilers for Obi-Wan, not actually, but there's the like Vader half mask moment. And I'm like, this is done way better than that moment. Like it's done even better, and it works for me very well. I love this show. I think that season 2 is a step down from season 1, but season 1 is a masterclass of what television is. Breakneck speed. It's like totally would have benefited from a 3rd season, if not a 4th act. I think that a 4th act really would have helped breathe a little bit more, where we could have had, like you said, even let's have episode 6. Honestly, episode 6 could be where episode 6 is, but if we just had a little bit more time of like resolutions and putting Vi and Caitlyn on camera a little bit more and putting Jinx and Vi together a little bit more, the final episode would have been awesome. But like, also just do really cool shit for a final episode, and they did that with Jinx on the hot air balloon and Echo having the savior moment and just being fucking awesome. Having a moment, dude. Like, there's nothing cooler in all of media where all of a sudden the main character goes down, and there's that moment where both Jinx and Vi get like taken over by the hive mind, and they start looking up, and then Jace does, and then I know this sounds dumb. In my internal monologue, I Need a Hero starts playing as Echo fucking starts flying in and everything. Yeah. It is just as good as it gets from hype, not even fan service, because I don't give a flying fuck about League of Legends or anything like that. But like, it was built up in such a way that I'm like, this moment's earned, and it's the coolest shit ever. Mm-hmm. Let's fucking rock. And so the dynamic between Victor and Jace, Echo here, all of it just worked for me. The only thing that didn't was the Vi and Jinx dynamic at the very end of the episode. Yeah. But then I rewatched it and I'm like, no, this actually works for me. So I don't really have a large gripe there. And that's where I just land on the show being like, oh, this is one of my favorite shows ever. This is one of the best shows ever.
I love Act 1. I like Act 2, and I love certain aspects of Act 2. And then but I have some gripes with it, obviously. And then Act 3, Episode 7, excellent. Episode 8 and 9 just fall off for me completely. Yeah. So that's kind of where I'm at with it. Like I still think that it's better than a lot of television shows just in general. Yeah. Like even it's like pizza. Like even Arcane at its worst is still better than like
it's the animation
90% of shows.
I said this on the phone with our sister, who's a big fan of the show. Yesterday, she called me up and we were talking about it, and I was like, the one thing that I keep on going back to is before those last 3 episodes, I cannot decide still what I liked better, the characters or the animation. I think that they're both at the top of their fucking game. And the one thing that I can definitively say is the animation is the star of the show, and the characters do fall off a little bit.
The animation can be the best ever, and it wouldn't matter to me if the characters weren't and the story wasn't great. Like that's all that matters to me, honestly. Like they could take a step down in the animation and just have these characters like in season 1, and I still would feel the same about it.
Connor, let's close out here. What is better, Arcane or Into the Spider-Verse?
Season 1 of Arcane is better than Into the Spider-Verse, but Into the Spider-Verse as a whole, in comparison to Arcane as a whole, I would take Into the Spider-Verse.
Let's do Into the Spider-Verse and Across.
I would take Arcane as a whole over Across.
And Into together? So
no.
Both versus both. Season 1 and 2 versus.
I would take Spider-Verse.
Okay, I would not. In both regards.
Yeah.
Which
I just don't like the ending of Across the Spider-Verse. It feels too much like a
cliffhanger and everything.
Yeah, it bothered me.
I mean the drums in that final
it's cool.
shot.
Like
it's so good.
It just feels really bad. Like I do not like. If you're gonna do a part 1, you need to have some sort of like it felt
resolution.
Like it felt like it got to the climax and just ended. And it's oh fuck.
There
like,
was
I want more.
There's not a true resolution in that first.
There is no resolution.
Yeah,
like,
it is.
It all build.
All build.
Like, okay.
And the build's fucking great. But yeah, I just
great.
want last word on Arcane. No matter what, at the Game Awards, Ella Purnell is gonna win a fucking trophy. Do you know about this?
No.
She's the lead in Fallout, and she's also Jinx.
Yeah.
And so a lot of people are joking to me like, no matter what, she's taking some hardware back. Shout out to her and Haley Steinfeld.
Yeah. Final thoughts. I like the show. I love season 1. I like season 2. I have gripes with it, obviously, but at the end of the day, my opinion does not matter. If you love Arcane, please go on loving it. I have to talk into a microphone. So like this is my job. So just because I don't like aspects of it does not mean that you need to be convinced by any means. And I'm happy to have a discussion. If there's points that people want to point out to make me feel better about this, I would love to feel better about the show because I want to love it. So
lastly, get in the comments and talk to us. Like, if you want to bring up a point of like why a character dynamic is, do us a favor, 2 things. 1, please do that. We want to understand the show a little bit better.
It's very convoluted.
Yeah, I will definitely rewatch this show. I'm going to probably give it a little bit more time than I did between season 1, season 2 rewatch. But like, especially with last night, going back and watching certain episodes and moments and everything.
Yeah.
But I will rewatch it eventually. Do us a favor though, if you're going to comment, no league lore. That is not like, I don't care. Like it needs to be within this show to make sense. A character reason cannot be because of a league ability or because of a dynamic that they have in league. That is sloppy. That is not necessary.
Apparently league lore is a total mess.
Oh yeah, I mean
there's a lot going on. There's a ton of characters.
So just a heads up though, like if someone is like, so the reason that Vander is because of league, the second you say league goes over my head. But like Connor said earlier in the podcast, we would love to read the comments being like, so this is why Vander gets brought back and the scientist and everything chooses him. I think that's an issue we both have.
We talked about that. Like, I don't know why the scientist chose this specific character to experiment on. It felt it's like, oh, it just happens to be Jinx and Vi's dad figure. It's like, okay.
Yeah.
like,
so we love that. We would love you to give your explanation. I would also love to hear your review. Connor's around 7.5 or around 9.5. Like this is I think the 3rd time or 4th time. You and I don't differ on 2 points too often, but here we are. This is a fun one.
7.5 is still a good score.
Yep.
I still think it's a good show.
Yeah, it is. That is your thoughts. I think that is like one of the best shows I've ever seen. But yeah, please get in the comments. We would love to read that. We will see you in the next one. Also, this is going to go up on Sunday. We still have the podcast on Monday. This is bonus pod. So there will be a podcast on Monday, 9 a.m. Eastern. Hot takes. It's going to be a lot of fun. Connor, anything else?
Peace out.
Peace out.